Hello, gentlemen. We're going to walk you through today the sixth reading of Caesar's reading that we were looking at from the Gallic Wars in your Oxford Latin course. This is on page 64 of the reader, starting with lines 108. So, just to give us a context of what we're talking about, the Gauls have been beaten by Caesar, but Caesar could not take the whole island because the cavalry that was on the ship got delayed and blown off course. And so the Gauls then come to Caesar and ask for peace. And he says, I will accept peace if you give me some hostages. So the Britons then ask for some time to gather the hostages together. In that time, Caesar explains that there's a large storm and a tide that destroys much of his ships. So we're going to read through this, and you can fill out your study guides, which you received in class, as we go through it. Start us off, I'll read the Latin of each sentence and we'll parse it out for you. So, iadem nocte accidet ut esset luna plena, qui dies maritimos aestus maximos in oceano efficere, consuevit nostisque ed erat incognitum. First we'll look at the verbs. What are the verbs of the sentence? The verbs are in bold. Accidet is the first verb. It's an impersonal verb. It means it happens. So it happens. And then esset is subjunctive imperfect. It's in the ut clause. It's not a purpose or result clause. It's kind of after accidet you usually have a subjunctive with ut. And then we have consuevit, which is a perfect tense form of consuesco, and it means to be accustomed. And then erat, of course, is the imperfect of sum. The consuevit is part of the qui clause, which is a relative clause from above. Now I'll go through and we'll look at the greens are, of course, the subjects of each verb, and the blues are the objects, direct objects. So accidet is an impersonal verb, so there is no subject. Esset is a linking verb, so there are two subjects. We have luna, which is the noun, and then plena, which is the predicate nominative adjective. So the moon was full, is how that all goes. And then we have qui and dies, which is that day and which day, which is the subject of consuevit. And then we have id, erat, incognitum. So id is the neuter nominative of isea id, so that thing. And then incognitum is the neuter nominative adjective, predicate nominative. And then maritimos aestus maximos is the object of the verbal phrase consuevit efficere. Alright, so here's how it all looks together. We have iadem nocte, which is going to be an adverb of time when. So on that same night, accidet, it happened, ut esset luna plena, that the moon was full, qui dies, so which day, consuevit, it is accustomed. Then we have the verbal phrase, it is accustomed efficere, to cause, or to effect, to make. Maritimos aestus maximos, like maritime or ocean tide, very big. So a big tide in the ocean, in oceano, a place where. And then nostrisque, to us, this was an unknown thing. Nostris is going to be dative plural of noster. Alright. Next sentence. So this, so there's a big tide, there's a full moon, and it causes a tide. It causes trouble for the Roman ships. Next sentence is a bit long, as you can see, but again, don't get overwhelmed. Just take it as it comes, and we will work out together. So, first, I'll just read the whole thing. Try to just listen and read along, and get an idea of what you're going to be reading about. So, ita. Uno tempore et longus naves quibus caesar exercitum transportandum curaverat, quasque in aridum subduxerat, aestus compleverat et honorarios, quae ad ancoras erant delegatae, tempestas afflictabat, neque ola nostris facultas ad administrandi aut exiliandi debatur. Alright, again, We'll look at first all of the verbs, and there's the verbs, lots of verbs in this long sentence. Kerawit, he cared, or he saw to it. It's pluperfect, indicative, and then we have subject surat, to like lead up to, sub plus duco, so like to almost with a ship, which is using here to like bring him to shore, dock or beach. And then complerat is compleo. Again, it's indicative pluperfect, and it means to fill. And then erant is going to be another form of sum, so for two nominatives there. And then flictabat is going to be a imperfect indicative, to be afflicted or troubled. And then dabator is going to be a passive imperfect indicative, dodari, to give. So they're your verbs. Again, you can rewind this as you see fit. Next, the subjects and the object. So longas naves, of course, is the object of Kurawerat. Caesar is the subject of Kurawerat. And we have kind of a lot of clauses this is part of. Exercitum transportandum is an object with a gerund with it, so transporting the army. Quas is an object of subduxerat, and then in aridam is accusative of professional phrase, accusative placed to which, onto the dry land, and aridam, onto the dry land. And then aistos is the subject of compleverat, and then onerios is the object of that. So the wave, again, aistos is wave, it filled. The onerios is the load-bearing ships. And then the quae is a relative pronoun to onerios, so which, and then which were, the which there should be blue, should be green, is the subject of erant, which were bound, delegetai is bound. And then the tempestas is the subject of afflictabat, and the storm afflicted. Alright, so that's that clause. And then nor bola is any, was any facultas, was any help. And then the subject, the verb with that is going to be dabator, was any help given. Okay, so last look at here with all the different things put in. So una tempore is going to be ablative time when, and so at the same time, at one time, we have et, so we have an et followed up before onorius, so those are the two et. So both the long ships and the load-bearing ships. Okay, so both the long ships, in which quibus is a relative pronoun back to the long ships, in which Caesar had cared for the transporting of the army, exercitum transportandum, which he had led, another relative pronoun, so the antecedent of quas there is going to be exercitum transportandum, which he had led onto the dry land. Okay, so the subject of this is aistus. So the aistus filled, and it filled the long ships, both the long ships from above, and the load-bearing ships, which, again, quae, were bound, erant delegetai ad anchoras, at anchor. Alright, so we have complerant, takes two objects, longas, naves, and onerios, and the storm afflicted them again. Nor was any help given to us, either for two gerunds here, either for administering or for helping. So they cannot help their ships. So here we have now, when there's lots of destruction of the ships, there's going to be he describes now the problems of the army. So, cum pluribus nobis fractis, reliquae cum essent funibus ancoris reliquisque armamentis amicis et navigandum inutiles, magna et quod necesse errata cidere totius exercitus, perturbatio facta est. Again, this is a relatively long, complex sentence. We have a cum clause, which is essent there, the verb for that. We have a relative clause, which is erat. And then we have the main clause, which is facta est, is the verb for that. So essent is, of course, was, and then imperfect subjunctive. And then erat is also to be, which is indicative imperfect here. And then we have facta est, which is perfect passive, from facio, to make, so was made. The subjects of these are reliquae, is the remaining of the ships were, so essent, remaining of the ships were, and then we have useless for inutiles. It's going to go back to the predicate nominative with reliquae, and then magna. The magna is going to modify perturbatio, which is after the quod, after the quique clause, after the relative clause. So a great disturbance was made. And then the id quod necesse is kind of idiomatic almost, which was necessary to, and then a cidere to happen. Okay? So now with all the extra, this is a lot of extra ablative and genitive uses here. So it starts off with a good old ablative absolute. With several ships having been broken, cum pluribus nobis fractis. The remaining, since we have cum clause here, I think cum causal clause, since the rest remaining were inutiles, useless, ad navigandum, a little gerund of the purpose there, were useless for sailing. And then we have an absolute. Funibus ancoris reliquisque armamentis amicis, with, which means like funibus is ropes, so with the ropes and the anchors and reliquis armamentis is like the rest of the armaments missing, they were used for sailing. A great disturbance was made, and magna perturbatio facta est, of the whole army, totius exercitus, id quod necesse errata cidere, which is like as it is necessary to occur. As often happens is kind of how that translates. So line 15. Neque inum naves errant aliae, quibus reputari possent et omnia de errant, quae ad ficiendas naves errant usui, et quod omnibus constabant iam mare and Gallia portere, fermentum his in locis in hienem provisum non erat. So again, look at the verbs first. Another complex sentence from Caesar. We have subjects here also bolded. I apologize. So errant, it was, and possent, to be able. De errant is from de esset, which is to be lacking, and errant is imperfect, again, of assume. Consto is like, constat is an impersonal verb. It is agreed. And then we have erat below, which was. So here we have more of subjects and stuff. Green for you in the objects and blue. So naves, ships, errants, others, so other ships, omnia, everything. Quae is an older pronoun of omnia, so which. And then fermentum is the subject of erat, which fermentum is like grain or food. And then we have the object of constabat is quod, so it is agreed that, and that's the object of that. And then we have a accusative personal phrase, a place where. And then altogether, for nor were there other ships. Neque inum naves, so nor were there other ships. to which, so quibus is an ablative pronoun based off of the antecedent of which is always. So nowhere there are other ships to which they were able to be reported. Reportare is a passive infinitive. And everything lacked, which somnia there, everything lacked, which so quae goes to errant, which are usui, which is useful to another generative purpose, ad verificandas, to building the ships, and which it is agreed that by all it was important, opertere, to winter hier mare and Gallia. Fermentum, the grain in this place was not in the winter provision. So in his locis, in these places, a place where the grain was not in these places for winter provision. And that's the Caesar reading for today.